views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
And welcome to our special Vote 2017 edition of In the District. Coming up, we've got candidates from City Council District 8. That includes the neighborhoods of East Harlem, Mott Haven, High Bridge, Concourse, Longwood, and Port Morris. City Council Speaker Melissa Mark Viverito is term limited, so there is no incumbent in this race. We've invited all the candidates on the ballot for the Democratic Party to participate in this program. I'm Darren Jaime, introducing you to the candidates running for City Council District 8 on In the District. Welcome back. Joining us now is candidate for the 8th City Council District, Diana Ayala. We welcome you to the show.
Thank you.
Good to have you.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
How's the campaign going?
It's going well. It's going well. And people are being really receptive of our message. We're knocking on many doors, making a bunch of calls. So we're really busy.
So give us a little bit about yourself. Who is Diana Ayala?
Well, it all started in 1973.
Take me back there, right?
Actually, I was born in Puerto Rico. I was raised in the Lower East Side. My mom moved us to New York when I was 5 years old. I am the second oldest of 8 children, raised by a single mother until I was about 12 years old. I was raised in public housing after coming out of public shelter in the Lower East Side, right on Houston and Columbia. A fire in one of the residential buildings that we lived in forced us into shelter, and then we were lucky enough to get an apartment in public housing where I lived until I was 17. I actually moved out of the Lower East Side right after a series of very, unfortunate circumstances. I was a teenage parent. I had my son when I was 16. I lost his father when I was 3 months pregnant to gun violence and ended up in shelter myself before relocating here to the Bronx, actually. And I lived in High Bridge, went to school at Bronx Community College, and went to school here at Lehman.
So you've got a good Bronx background.
So I've been around for, yeah.
Exactly. So, and you've also been the Deputy Chief of Staff to
And I've been
Speaker.
the Deputy Chief of Staff. So I actually started working for the Speaker 11 years ago, had no political experience whatsoever, didn't even know who my representatives were at the time. And she said, I've seen you in action in this community. I see how you resonate with the constituents and how people, respond to you as a person. And I think that you get the issues. And so it doesn't matter that you're not politically, connected or, as politically astute as you think that you should be. I think that you're perfect for this job. And so I accepted a position in constituent services for 7 years. I did that. And then 4 years ago was promoted to Deputy Chief of Staff.
So talk to me about the district now, because obviously you know it very well.
Yes.
What do you find to be some of the biggest challenges that you have facing the district?
Always is housing. Housing continues to be a challenge for us. In both parts of the district, we have similarities, but we also have quite, significant differences. In the East Harlem part of the district, for instance, we're going through an upzoning process right now. We're rapidly gentrifying. We're seeing some of the effects of that already creeping into the South Bronx part of the district, but not as aggressively as in the East Harlem part of the district. So how do we, rezone in a manner that is responsible and that is beneficial to the community is a conversation that I've been having with our constituents, and it's actually been a very long process. Gun violence continues to plague our communities. It's something that's really important to me as a person who has been personally affected by gun violence. It's something that, I was at a funeral last year, and it was very reminiscent of, a funeral that I was in, almost 30 years ago. And so nothing has changed. And so those are some of the issues that I think are really important to me. They're issues that are important to the, to the constituents that I, would love to represent. Mm-hmm. And so I would like to do a lot of work around those areas.
Hitting the campaign trail, going door to door, obviously
Yeah.
you're touching base with a lot of people. What are you hearing out there?
Housing. I do a lot of door knocking in public housing because we happen to have one of the largest public housing stocks, and so a lot of my time is spent in public housing. And obviously the conditions, the mold, the lack of security, the broken doors, people not feeling safe in their own units. The rents are going up, but the quality of life continues to deteriorate. It's always number one on the list of concerns that I'm hearing.
And so as you're running right now, you've received the endorsement from the borough president, but not from the Bronx Dems. How are you feeling about that?
I feel fine. I think we've made peace with that. We're still friends, and I speak to County all of the time, and I'm really excited about the borough president's endorsement. He's actually been out, doing door knocking with me, and he's quite a celebrity. And so I'm very grateful for his endorsement and very proud to, partner with him in this endeavor.
What do you think is going to make the difference for you going forward in this election in the minds of voters?
I think that I have the advantage of having been in this position already for the last, in a position that allows me a lot of visibility and a lot of access to services and bringing in resources to this district for the last 11 years. And I think that that makes a difference for people because they know me, they know that they can count on me, they know that I've been reliable, they know I've been present, and they know that I deliver. And so I think that that's going to really make a difference.
Where do you see things happening in the next couple of years if you're elected?
I mean, again, the rezoning and the gentrification issues are going to be heavily, part of the conversations that we're going to be having for the next few years. Specifically here in the Bronx,
Right.
because it's not something, it's new to us, and so I think that will absorb a lot of time.
When you talk about gentrification, obviously a lot of people see it. How do you stop it?
I don't think that you can. Like, having come from the Lower East Side, you don't stop it. I think that you slow it down, but I think that we've gotten smarter, and I think that communities can come together to make decisions that don't necessarily stop it, but benefit from it, right? And so we're in East Harlem, for instance, we had the East Harlem Neighborhood Plan, and so we had community residents come together and say, okay, if this is going to happen, what would you like to see come out of this plan, right? So more protections for our businesses is an issue, right? How do we ensure that we're not overcrowding our school systems is something that we want to have a conversation about. How do we bring in more jobs for our young people? So there are certain benefits that come, from these processes, but we have to, as a community, have some input.
East Harlem, Bronx, two separate places, but yet and still there's a lot of
similarities.
What do you find to be the similarities?
A lot of similarities. The population is the same. We, in both parts, again, we're very heavily public housing developments. People have the same issues. Lack of jobs, gun violence. I mean, it's almost the mirror images of each other. It's really funny because we're divided by water, but yet we're very similar in nature.
And so when you talk about opportunity, obviously that's something a lot of people worried about because the job situation is very critical these days, and you got a lot of great development that's going on across the city, but then the question is, where are we going to work?
Yeah.
How do we answer that
So
question?
we have to start training, first of all, we have to start looking at those development opportunities as opportunities also for employment, and how do we build green, right? Green infrastructure, and how do we start training and educating our, young people and preparing them for these jobs, because there is going to be a lot of opportunity for employment coming up. If we're getting, these box stores, which we all hate, but they come in, and okay, fine, how do we leverage some opportunities for, community jobs?
So if elected, obviously you have to work with a bunch of different city council people. You have very great relationship as the deputy staff for the speaker. How do you feel that's going to be able to leverage with your relationship with fellow council members?
I think it only strengthens it. I think we've spent the last 11, close to 12 years building on those relationships, and I think that there's a lot of respect amongst the colleagues, and I think that I welcome their support and their guidance in helping me help to shape this constituency.
You get the final word. Talk to your voters. What do you want them to know?
I want you to know that I'm a regular person. I'm a mom. I am a grandmother. I am a daughter. I have the same struggles. When your children are hungry, my children are hungry. When you're afraid, I'm afraid. When when you're concerned about whether or not you're going to be able to live in your community, I'm also concerned about whether or not my family is going to be able to live in this community. So I'm not very different from the constituents that I look to represent, and I hope that they see that in me, because I think that it brings a different perspective to politics. I think it brings a perspective of a person that has been there, has been in the grinds, and has had to fight to survive. And so it allows me a different perspective on how we do policy and how we appropriate funding.
Diana Ayala, thank you so much for coming and sharing with us, and best wishes.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
If elected, you got to come back.
Yes, I will. I promise.
Then. Thank you for joining us. Listen, we'll be right back with more. Stay with us. Coming right back right after this. And welcome back. Joining us now is the candidate for the 8th City Council District seat, Tamika Mapp, and we welcome you now to the show.
Thank you.
Good to have you on in the district. So you're running for the seat that's being or used to be occupied by the former City Council Speaker Melissa Mark Viverito. Why?
Because the city elected officials is not doing enough to protect our youth and do enough to make sure our housing stay affordable and making sure that the rezoning does not affect our families. So that's the reason why I'm running for office.
So when you talk about District 8, obviously a lot of things, there's a lot of, you have East Harlem, then you have the Bronx as well. When you look around, what do you find to be the biggest priorities in terms of dealing with District 8?
Affordable housing, making sure that every income bracket has a safe place to stay, regardless if you make $800 a year to all the way to $140,000 a year. So that's the biggest, trying to make sure everybody stays in the district that grew up all their lives in the district to stay in.
So given the fact that you have no political experience, but yet still you're seeking a seat, talk to us about that, because obviously that had to be a big question mark for you. I have no political experience, but yet and still you say, I can do it.
Well, I worked for President Obama's campaign in 2012. I went from an assistant field organizer to a field director. And on Tuesday calls, he always call us and say, hey guys, what are you going to do? When you leave this campaign, you need to take these skills and actually bring it into your community, because that's how change is going to take place. So on a whim in November 2012, I was like, well, yeah, I can run for city council, why not? So that December 2012, I put my filing in. It was an easy breezy run. So I was like, oh, this is so easy. I think I can do this. And August 25th, 2013, my daughter passed away. So it kind of like put me a damper and put me in a bad place. So I canceled that campaign and actually came in 4th place with no political experience at all, no money raised. So that was my faith to say, okay, let's run for the state assembly. And Lord have mercy, did I have my eyes wide open? And that was 14 and 16 was my growing steps as a political candidate and actually a person who likes change to actually stay in the game. Because when you get kicked off the ballot twice with no opportunity for the people to actually hear you, to represent you, it's kind of like discouraging. So I ran in 2013 with all the experience that I had from 13, 14, and 16, and actually got on the number 2 spot for the ballot. And it does not take political experience, it just takes relationship building skills and leadership skills and the true meaning of public service. Rather than that, you can do it.
So being kicked off the ballot and now being on the ballot, obviously voters have an opportunity to hear you and to know a little bit about your message. What is it that you want to resonate in the minds and hearts of voters?
When you look at your elected officials, you have to actually see yourself inside of them. That way you'll hold them accountable. I'm looking for people that's in this district to hold me accountable. So when I miss up and have like bad days, they knocking on my office doors and say, hey, Ms. Mapp, I put you in here for X, Y, and Z. Why you're not doing that?
You said in one of your quotes, it's time for new leadership. Politics as usual has left us stuck.
Yes.
Give me that.
The reason why I said it left us stuck is because we have people always willing and dealing behind real estate developers. And as long as them back-ended deals with the real estate developers keep on continuing, it's going to displace us and it's going to keep us stuck because there's no true affordable housing actually coming in to play. So before you can actually think about affordable housing, you have to look at the wage increase. New York's rents is hot rising, but our minimum wage is staying stuck. So that's the reason why I'm the only candidate on this trial is looking to raise the living wage to $20 per hour so they can afford to stay in their houses when the rents keep on coming up.
But even though we see what living wage is right now, it's, it took a while to get there. How optimistic would you be to get it to $20 an hour?
Well, it's going to take me a while to get there, but with a little bit more bold, progressive people coming to the ballot and for the city council races and the state assembly races and the state senate, more people is willing to let the change be happening. So it's going to be like a fight, but more bold people coming in is going to make it a lot much easier to talk about.
You talked a little bit about housing. You talked about the things that are going on in East Harlem as well as over here in the borough of the Bronx. Gentrification being one of those things that people are talking about and fighting against. You talked about developers. How do you propose in dealing with the gentrification crisis that seems to be going on and plaguing East Harlem and even parts of our Bronx?
Well, when you look at it as a gentrification type of issue, you have to look at the whole aspect. I don't mind when people with a higher income bracket come into our neighborhoods. It brings our property value up, it brings our learning experiences up, and everybody learns. When we get into that tricky area is when the real estate developers say that I'm only going to build luxury housing. That has to stop when they come in to do that. And I'm really against that. When you come in, you're supposed to bring housing with you and making sure that people that makes $800 a month be able to stay with people who makes $140,000 a month. And that's when real change and real dialogue will actually happen.
I know you also have a heart for small business. You did
Yes.
some work with teaching aspiring entrepreneurs.
Well, as a small business owner myself, it's very important that small business owners in New York City knows their legal and financial responsibilities. That's one thing that the New York State failed to do. They make it so easy to file to become a business, but they don't tell you your insurance obligation and your tax obligation until you miss your filings, and then you get this big old bill. So that's where we will come in place to let them know the nuts and bolts of running their small businesses, so they don't have to be burdened with tax bills that they have no reason or no knowing about it.
So when you talk about your campaign, what is it that you want voters to know in terms of Tamika Mapp?
That I'm a bold person, and I like to come out of my comfort zone, and I don't mind speaking up for people. I'm actually in the trenches with everybody. You don't even know I'm a candidate when I'm in a neighborhood. That's what I want people to know, that I'm just like them, but just in a higher position to fight for them.
Do you feel like a mighty uphill battle, given the fact, even though it's the City Council Speaker Melissa Mark Viverito is termed out, it's still the City Speaker's seat. Do you feel a little bit of an uphill battle and a lot of pressure here?
No, because the district doesn't want another Melissa. Because Melissa's running for the district leader position, and then she picked her deputy chief of staff to become the next city council. Nobody wants that in the district. I actually go and knock on everybody's door in the Bronx, and that's one of the things they're saying. I don't want another Melissa, and I'm not voting another Melissa in office.
So for get the final few seconds here, if somebody wants to know, speak to the voters. Tell them what you want.
Hi, you can reach me on Facebook at EHCFGG. I'm also on Twitter at the same EHCFGG. Instagram, Tamika_Mapp_4_City_Council to get all the happenings and all the no's, because I know that young voters like to be hip. So you could tweet me and actually get back to you in a timely response. You can also look at my website at ehcfgg.com. You can also text me at 917-310-2125. And yes, I do answer text messages at 5 o'clock in the morning. Thank you.
All right, Tamika Mapp, thank you so much for
No
coming
problem.
to share with us. She's running for City Council District 8's seat, the seat that has no incumbent. Melissa Mark Viverito, City Council Speaker, is actually termed out. Thank you for sharing with us here
No
on
problem.
In the District.
Thank you.
All right, thanks for joining us. We'll be right back with more in a second. And joining us now is candidate for the 8th City Council District, Assemblymember Robert Rodriguez, and we welcome you to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Good. I'll start off with the basic question. You're up in Albany, and you're seeking a city council seat. Why not Albany? Why it's New York City?
Well, I've spent 6 years in the Assembly, and I've loved my time there. I've learned a great deal, taking on some great challenges. We fought for New York City public housing, because before we got there, there was no contribution from the state for public housing. And since then, we've gotten the state to put up $300 million to start doing that. We fought for transportation. We fought for the 2nd Avenue subway. So I've taken on great battles and been successful on a number of them, but it's a unique opportunity. I've waited, 8 years for the opportunity to run for this seat. Before that, I served in the community board, since 2002 and chaired it. So my experience, both on the city level, goes that far back. And when an opportunity like this presents itself, it's kind of exciting and one of those things that you can't pass by.
What do you look at and say is the most important thing that you need to do for your district?
When we talk about both East Harlem and the South Bronx, affordable housing is the #1 issue. And really, it's a 3-pronged strategy. You got to fight to invest in public housing so that the most vulnerable low-income New Yorkers have a place to stay. We got to fight to preserve our affordable housing so that everybody who's in a place that they can afford can stay, and then we have to build as much new affordable housing as we can for the millions of people who are on wait lists all over the city.
And when we talk about housing, obviously a lot of people are concerned about jobs.
Sure.
And the economy. How do you address that in the city council?
Well, I think it's important that housing creates jobs, right? If we're building housing, then obviously people are, one, constructing that and then also servicing them. So that part of the affordable housing plan, results in jobs, whether we're talking about NYCHA jobs or whether we're talking about union labor jobs. All of that comes into the discussion around, creating opportunities and building our communities for the residents who live there now. But jobs is something that when we talk about the changes that are happening in the city, where are the small businesses going to exist, which we know are one of the biggest hiring engines for our city. So we have to be able to make sure that there's a place for them at the end of the day as our city changes and as incomes lag behind. So we have to make sure that we are able to, one, create new jobs through small businesses, and then also make sure that we're meeting the needs of the constituents. And that's the role of the city council member, is really helping to make those decisions about land use and zoning changes and the things that could fuel many of the changes both in housing and with job creation.
So if elected, what do you determine as your top priority? Top
priority is housing. I mean, it's the issue that everyone's concerned about. People are worried about staying in their homes, but there are others, right? We talked a little bit about housing already and what my approach would be, but transportation is another huge issue. We've been pushing on Move New York in the legislature for quite some time. The governor seems to have an interest in it, but we have to make the MTA work. It has to be affordable for everyone, including low-income New Yorkers, and it has to be fair. And one of the things that we need is access. 2nd Avenue subway to 125th Street needs to happen, as does increased transportation to the South Bronx hub. So that's another important priority. And the third one, just to mention for both sides of my district, in the East Harlem part and the Bronx part, is access to the waterfront. Every place else in New York City, we have Brooklyn Bridge Park, East River Park, Long Island City. When you get to East Harlem and the South Bronx, we have no access and some of the most limited park space of any other district in the city. So we need to really look at how we invest in that and make it happen in the next few years.
Talked to a lot of people from East Harlem, and the big concern for them is gentrification. The feeling of gentrification, not just the feeling, they feel like the hand of gentrification is there. Do you identify with that? And if so, your thought?
It's very real, no matter what income level you're at. Whether you're low income, working class, everyone feels the pressure of increasing rents. And it's not just the East Harlem part, it's the South Bronx part. When I went to, I've talked to people and seen Street Easy, and you see that 1 bedrooms are going for $2,500, $2,800, 2 bedrooms, $3,000. Those are big numbers. So everybody, who lives in East Harlem today looks at that number and says, I can't pay that. What happens to me? So in both parts of the district, that's what we're seeing in terms of market level rents. And that's why the fight and the quest to create as much and preserve as much affordable housing is so real to everyone.
You have a little field of candidates that's running. What sets you apart in your perspective?
I think what's different is the experience. Having served on the community board as a volunteer, for so many years, having led that body and been able to get 50 people to agree on affordable housing guidelines shows my ability to build consensus. In the last 6 years in the legislature, we've gotten great traction on important initiatives, paid family leave, marriage equality, minimum wage increases, NYCHA housing. We've gotten money for the waterfront. We've shown we are able to do things when put in that body and do it in a collaborative way with great colleagues. And that's why we have so much support from my colleagues in terms of endorsements. But I think that's what makes the difference. Someone who's done it on both the grassroots level as a community board leader, as elected representative in the legislature, and can immediately bring that experience to bear in the city council.
So the seat is no incumbent, of course, and it's termed out by Council Speaker Melissa Mark Viverito. Do you feel a sense of pressure if elected, being that she's coming out as the city council speaker, to really get in there and have to perform at a high level?
Well, I think that's the beauty of having that experience. I mean, no one ever wants to follow a speaker of the city council, right? But really, as a council member, who can have the biggest immediate impact on day one? And I think it's somebody who's born and raised in the community, who's done the work on all levels of government, and can hit the ground running. And what I think is unique is who can bring a knowledge of state resources and bring that together with city resources to make a difference in the lives of the residents. I don't think anybody else can do that except me.
And so, for people who want to get connected to your campaign, what do they do?
Look us up online. New Yorkers for Robert Rodriguez is our website, and we certainly look forward to hearing from people. We're also on Facebook and Twitter.
In the middle of this balancing act between assembly and now trying to run for the council seat, how do you keep both going?
Well, you always listen to your constituents, right? That's the number one priority, and I think right now we are doing our best job in terms of listening to them, because we have great events that we have on the assembly side, but we're also listening to our constituents every day on the campaign trail. So,
and what are you hearing?
And we're hearing good things. We're hearing good things, but we're hearing the problems are there. The problems are affordable housing. The problems are, what are we doing to help make life better for the residents? What are we doing with asthma? What are we doing with traffic? What are we doing with homeless shelters? So we're hearing a lot. We're getting an earful all over the place, but I think that's where we're able to take those suggestions and bring them into policy initiatives. And I think that the important thing is making sure that we create more affordable housing, we deal with transportation, we deal with parks and open space, we limit the amount of homeless shelters that we have, because we have more than anyone else in the city, and make sure that we deal with the quality of life issues for our residents.
All right. Something with Robert Rodriguez.
Thank you.
So much.
Thanks for having me.
All right, good to have you. All righty. Listen, thank you for joining us. We're going to have more. Stay with us. Coming right back. Well, thank you for joining us. Now, for more information on this election and more, continue to follow us at bronxnet.tv. And for more information on voting locations, you can visit vote.nyc.ny.us. And remember, most of all, head out to the polls on September the 12th to make your voice heard. I'm Darren Jaime, thanking you for watching In the District.